Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. I'm very excited to introduce to you Krista Resnick. She is a master certified coach, a podcaster, a sought after speaker, and a mother to 3 boys. She is a powerhouse of soul, fun, compassion, and vibrancy. Her honest and curious approach guides the women she serves in a way that is both real, true, and supportive. Her work empowers women to stop settling and put themselves back on their priority list. Krista supports women by helping them break free of codependent and people-pleasing patterns so they can set healthy boundaries and master the art of their truth. Welcome to the show, Krista.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to give me just a second here. All right. I am really excited for this conversation, Krista, because I feel like my tombstone will read, Kim worked on boundaries her whole life.
Yeah.
And I know I have made so much progress in this area, but I will say it's one of the hardest things. And I find it mostly hard for women. And I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
So
Yeah.
let's just start by defining boundaries, because I think, what are boundaries?
Yeah, I love this question, and you're going to hate my answer. So I'm going to give you my out of the mouth answer, and then let me do a little defining. I don't actually know or think that there's one flat answer for what is a boundary. So I've played with tons of definitions, and I think actually all of them work. I think it depends on really where you're at in your boundary journey. For some folks that have ran the people pleasing and maybe codependent pattern, the overgiving, the overhelping, whatever you want to call it, whatever empowers you, you call it whatever empowers you. Sometimes saying no, like that's the definition of your boundary for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes the definition is, this is just not what I'm available for. I've played with that for a while when I was first getting started, because I was so enmeshed with what everybody else had going on and fixing and helping and sending them this podcast and sending them this book excerpt. And so for a while, I just had to say, no, I'm not available for this. And what happened, Kim, weaving this into the definition, is I started to become very rigid. So I woke up and started to notice, okay, I'm very boundaried now here. I went from boundaryless to boundaried, but I'm also very isolated and alone. So then I started to play with different definitions and different interpretations. And so really, a boundary is being honest with who you are and where you're at. Yeah, I know, right? It's being honest. And it's, yes, there are limits, there are parameters, of course. And it's being honest with who you are, not hiding those parts of yourself, not hiding those limitations, and being able to just really be honest and say, this is what I have the capacity for. So they're not a dividing line like people think. They're actually something that deeply, deeply connects us. Because you're being honest. Now the other person has the responsibility and the opportunity to say, yeah, I don't think I want to be in a relationship with you. Or yeah, I really like who you are, and I want to be in relationship with you.
I can't tell you how timely this is for me. And as someone who empowers women to do this very thing, I still struggle with it. I'm sure you do too. We are better than we were a year ago, and we're far better than we were 5 years ago. But I want to share an example of what you just said to me and how that plays out. And I don't share this example to hurt my loved one, because we all have, I feel like most of the time, all of us are going around as our 6-year-old traumatized selves.
Yeah.
And I understand that the way people behave, it's like I'm reading the book right now by Oprah and Dr. Bruce Perry, which is not what is wrong with you, not judging you, but what happened to you that causes this behavior in you. And someone that is near and dear to me is probably my biggest teacher for boundaries, yet my biggest struggle. And recently, and I'll just say it, it's my sweet, loving mama, and I have changed a lot in 20 years. And I have stepped out of much of my people pleasing tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, people do not always like those changes in you.
Correct.
And so I'm a runner. I was running down Main Street. My mom was coming out of her apartment and I stopped for a minute to talk to her. And out of nowhere, and like I said, my mama is loving, and trust me, I have all of my issues. I always hope that she never listens to my podcast because I would never want to hurt her feelings. But she said something to me that she says a lot, and it just kind of came out of a conversation. And she said, I just wish we were closer. I just wish we were closer. And I said, Mom, and I go, we have like a weekly dinner date. We go out every week. We spend 2 hours at the pizza joint. And she, she kind of said once a week. And I was thinking, oh my God, so many people don't have once a week, And then she said, and you never call me in between. That's the only time I get to talk to you. And of course it hurt and it stung because I want to honor that she is a retired woman. Her children are gone. They have their own lives. I'm sure she experiences loneliness.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I held my ground and I said, Mom, I don't know if I've changed over the years. I don't like text messages. I don't like having to talk to people on the phone. I'm very driven in my business. I work from 8 to 5 every day. And, she'll call me or text me or, during the day at times and be like, something kind of small. And I've had struggled with boundaries, like just because I'm working from home doesn't always mean I'm available, right?
100%.
So can you save some of those little things for our Thursday night dinner date? But then I think for her, it's a way to connect with her daughter.
Yep.
And I think that's what had opened it up. She asked if I bug her, if she bugs me a lot. And I said, well, there's some small things that sometimes I'm thinking, gosh, I'm just trying to work and, don't want to have to deal with a smaller thing. And so then I said, I just have changed. I don't need as much of that social conversation that I maybe needed in my younger self.
Yeah.
And then she said, well, I just wish I had the old Kim back.
Really interesting.
And that's what she has said to me several times.
Yeah.
I just want the old Kim back. And so, of course, I went away and I was just like, oh, that's real good. Because I'm going to tell you what, the version of Kim Strobel who's worked on herself for 20 damn years is way more evolved. It is such a better person than she was. Like, I just immediately was hurt because I thought, oh, the work I've put into myself, and I'm independent. I'm not codependent on you or anybody else. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I love the company of myself. Yeah. And so that's been weighing heavily on me these last few days. And it's a culmination of a lot of things, right? She's lonely and needs more of me for her own mental well-being, but she actually needs to, you can't depend on somebody else to give you that,
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's really, two things are really coming up for me as you're sharing your story. Thank you for doing that, because it's a tender story. That's a hard one. That's a biggie. Can you be with the discomfort? People think, they look at somebody who they think has arrived. And I love how you kicked off the podcast saying, I've been working on this for 20 years. Welcome to personal growth. There's always more. And it's not like, oh, we got to be searching under all these stones and turning up these rocks because there's more. It's like, no, there's another layer we get to explore. We get to go deeper. And I find that really exciting, that there is no finish line. There is a finish line, but then you're 6 feet under, right?
Yeah.
So until that day, we get to go another layer deeper. We get to heal another trauma, a little microaggression, a little wound. So there's that. So the question really becomes is, can you stay with yourself in the discomfort? Can you not self-abandon? That's another thing that a boundary is. A boundary is the point in which you can no longer be yourself. So let me explain what I mean by that with a personal story, if I could, real quick. A couple of weeks ago, we were at a social gathering. It's a perfect place to go back into our patterns, our old ways of being, right?
Yes.
So we're at a social gathering. Somebody shares a joke that I find oppressive. Yeah. I have a moment where I can choose myself, and I can feel it in my body. That's why boundaries are so in our body. They're so implicit. We can feel them. For me, it's I get flush, I get hot immediately. My cheeks turn red. I can feel it happening in my body. My throat gets all constricted, like someone's choking me. So I have a moment where I can acquiesce and I can so that I'm not rejected, so that they don't think ill of me, so that they don't look at me and go, who does she think she is? Or I can stand in my truth and I can say, I find with everything that's going on in the world today, that that's very oppressive to that certain race or whatever the context of the joke was. So the boundary is that moment where it's like, okay, hold on. Am I going to go back into old ways of being and pattern? And I recognize that because of what's happening in my body. Or am I going to stand in my truth? And it's not always easy. So the question becomes, as I said, can you stay with yourself? Can you not self-abandon in those moments? And sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we don't. And that's okay. It's just noticing, being aware, picking yourself back up. The other thing with your mom too is we've got to remember she's not a victim. She can create, right? She can create new relationships. There's lots of opportunity for her to go and be a part of maybe bunkos and book clubs and different things.
Yes. And those are the things that she's not been willing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love when you're saying, I love that phrase, and I've heard it so many times, but again, for you to reiterate it, is this idea of self-abandoning. How many times do we abandon our wants, our needs, whatever it is, to please someone else?
Yep.
And then you walk away from that, and a little bit of your power is gone.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I was proud of myself because I, like you, I was so uncomfortable with the whole conversation from, do I bother you a lot? Like, how do you answer that? To when I was really taken back when she said, I just want the old version of Kim, because I had heard that multiple times. And my next statement was, well, this is the version you get.
Yeah. And to your point, you mentioned the word empowerment. That's another definition of boundaries. Mm-hmm. They are your circle of empowerments, of empowerment, not netments. Yes. So by you standing in your truth and being honest about who you are and where you're at, your mom has the opportunity to stand in her truth and say, okay, I guess I'm not going to get Kim 90% of the time. So I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to join the bunko group, or I'm going to go to the senior citizen center, or I'm going to start swim class or Zumba class every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. She's got to choose that though. So you've empowered her by you standing in your truth, empowering yourself with boundaries.
That's great perspective. I will tell you that I did spend the rest of my day questioning myself. And part of the problem is that she has a friend, and that friend's daughter calls her mama every single day. And that's what she wants me to be. And when you said a boundary is being honest with who you are. And that kind of spoke to my soul, because as I went through this process the last few days, you kind of berate yourself. You ask yourself if you're wrong. You tell yourself that this is the mother who has nurtured and loved you for 48 years. Does she not deserve a better daughter? I mean, these are the conversations you have. And then I thought to myself, who am I? And that this is who I am. Please, if you're a friend of mine, don't call me more than once a week. That's probably all I want to talk to you. It's just who Kim Strobel is. And that version of who I am is not wrong, even though it's very different than my friend who calls her mom every single day, from my mom's friend whose daughter calls her every single day. That is just not who I am. And that does not make me less of a daughter, even though it's still times difficult for me to convince myself of that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of giggling here because I don't think I've had my ringer on my cell phone off silent mode in 5 years, because I'm much like you. It is a massive interruption to my day.
Yes.
You are not welcome to stop over unannounced to my home. And that's not because I think I'm so fancy. It's because I am here for a God-given purpose. And I have got to get to accomplish certain things. Even the moments where I take breaks throughout my day, I'm playing with my dogs, I'm sitting in the sunshine. I just don't have the availability or want, I'm just not open to being interrupted because somebody else decided that was a good thing.
Yes.
It's not what I'm available for.
Exactly. And so I love that you're taking away and saying what we're asking anyone who's listening is, who are you and what is it that you want? And you need to be okay with that. I know that my own kind of spiritual mentor and counselor that's been in my life for 20 years, there are times when whether it be a friend or a family member that I need to draw a boundary, I get so sick thinking about having to say, like when you even said, like, you're not allowed to drop by. And of course you express that in a nice way.
Yes.
That feels so scary for people to have to, like, it's a real fear for people to do this. And I know our listeners are thinking, oh my God, I could never say that to a friend. I could never say that. Like, I want to, but I just can't do it. And so, how do we, and I think you've talked a little, but how do we begin to grow our confidence enough to stand in the truth of our own wants and needs and not always be giving ourselves in ways that don't feel good to us?
I love that question. It's a big one, but I love that question. So the first really practical, easy tip that I would love to share, and I watch women just feel a sense of relief when I share this tip. It's really simple and it's really powerful. And that is, let's stop thinking about boundaries perhaps as saying no and drawing a line in the sand. Let's shift them a little bit. Let's flip the paradigm and start thinking about boundaries as, what do we actually get to say yes to here? So by saying no, let's just play with this for a minute. By saying no to the hour-long phone calls to mom every day, what are we saying yes to?
That's an entire chapter of the book I'm writing, Krista.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, because I'll tell you my aha moment. And one of the things I teach is, every time you're a yes for something you don't want to do, you are inadvertently a no to what you do want to do.
Yeah.
And that is the question I have. And this came to fruition about 5 years ago, because in our town, if you have a kid who's a junior in high school, the parents organize the whole prom, right?
Yep.
And they stay up all night and they do all this stuff. And like, honestly, I've never been somebody who wants to be on those types of committees. Like, it's just not in me. And I'm like, but I did it because, like, I wanted to be like the good mama. So I did it all through elementary school. And then when he got to junior high and he didn't make student council, of course I was disappointed, but I was like, oh, I don't have to chaperone any dances. Right.
Yes.
And so he gets to his junior year and I do the right thing. I mom up and I do all this meetings and And then come his senior year, they don't have enough junior parents to help. And we get an email saying, hey, we need junior parents to help with this again. And so what did I do? I first called my friend Trish, who had served on the junior committee with me, and said, hey, you're not going to do this, are you?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, I told him I would. And I was like, shoot, because I'm looking for an out, right? Like if
Yeah.
Trish doesn't do it, and I really respect Trish, then I can have my, and I did exactly what you said. I started to go, okay, this is a super busy time of my year. I'm in 3 different states the week after prom. If I'm a yes to staying up till 5 a.m. on a Saturday, Sunday, then I'm a no to being able to bring my best energy to the stage.
Yeah.
If I'm a yes to this, I'm a no to the dinner date that I really look forward to on Saturdays when I'm traveling all week. And my husband and I really need that dinner date. And I started to go through and I kind of found my power in that essential question, that essential tip that you just gave my listeners, which is, when you are a yes, or when you kind of reversed it, right? Like if you say no, what are you gaining from
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. The other tip that I think is so powerful is looking at when we need to set boundaries. So anger is one of the heavy hitters. Where are you feeling angry in your life? Resentment is the next one. Resentment is probably the top one. So unpacking that a little bit, resentment is really still anger. It's anger that we have just pushed down, suppressed, avoided dealing with, and it's just sitting there in our tissues. And it's really stale anger, just sitting there, and we're simmering and we're simmering and we're simmering. And all of a sudden, hubby comes home and there's a little bit of edge to his tone and we explode. And 10 minutes later, we think, what in the world just happened? Well, that's because we never really dealt with all of the other things back when we should have, which probably was a boundary. So the reason why I share that to give a tip is, do we really want our relationships, our best relationships, filled with resentment? We can totally avoid that by just being honest with who we are and where we're at and what we need, and make that okay. Because often when we resent folks, what I find to be true for myself, when I have muddled up my relationships with resentment, we end up avoiding them. Pretty soon they're
Yes.
texting us, they want to do coffee on Saturday, and we're not even answering them. We're
Yes.
avoiding. That's how you know, ding, 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 there's some anger, there's some resentment going on there. Yeah. And is
Yeah.
that really what we want? I
It,
believe at the end of the day, we're hardwired, created for really amazing intimate relationships. But when we're bringing in this unclean energy of resentment because we're not willing to be with the discomfort of setting a boundary, man, we're muddling them up.
yes. Yes. I agree. Okay. So I'm actually going to pause this for a minute, this recording, because I want to grab something I just read. So give me a sec. And my video editor will love that she gets to edit all this. So I was just reading this morning because I think what we're talking about is we're talking about happiness and well-being for you.
Mhm.
And we're talking about the people we love and the relationships that we want to have.
Yeah.
And we want those to feel good a lot of the time. And so I was reading in this book and it was saying, do not become a person that relies on others to be happy. And of course, it was making me think of my own, personal situation. Like, I don't want to be in charge of my husband's well-being. I don't want to be in charge of my mom's well-being. I don't want to be in charge of I'm in charge of my own well-being, and nobody else is
Yeah.
responsible for that. And then it said, when you do that, you know, when you rely, when you people please to make the other person feel better, what it does is it places an unfair pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And then that leads to unhappiness and what you just said, bitterness, resentment, anger. And I love it. It said, you do not owe anybody anything for any reason. And that love is not a bond or a bind, it is freedom. And you've got to give yourself freedom. That's what love is. Love is when I'm allowed to be like with my son, and I'm not perfect at this either. Love is when I allow my son to be who he wants to be
Yep.
and not who I think he should be.
Bingo.
Or, or how he should navigate the world. And he's a remarkable person. But at times, he's a 21-year-old and I'm like freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Yep.
And so
I have 3 of those, Kim. I have 3 of those.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. And so even in this situation with my loving mother, I'm thinking about how I at times have used some of those techniques on my own child.
Yeah.
And so this was a great reminder today when I read that it's allowing the other person, because right, some people who are listening are going, shit, this is what I do to other people.
Yeah, well, and ultimately what it is, Kim, the deeper conversation here, which we don't need to unravel it a whole ton, but I'll just leave you with this, is it's about control. It's about wanting to control. And so that's why so many people don't love the labels, people pleasing or codependent. I personally do, and they're not who I am, but they're parts of me. They're these patterns that I picked up in childhood to keep myself safe and protected from rejection, protected from not feeling like I wasn't smart enough and didn't fit in, all of those things, right? I personally like those labels because I'm able to use them as empowerment in my life. I just caught myself the other day. I was on somebody else's side of the street. I'll just tell you, it was my husband's. I was on his side of the street and I said, Krista Resnick, there's your codependent pattern. Stop trying to control. Back on your side of the street, sister. Go. What are you doing? So I use them to kind of play and add a little bit of levity and just empower myself.
Yeah. And I think it's self-awareness. When you catch someone doing something to you and you in your mind call out that behavior, I then reflect and say, hey, how am I being passive aggressive or manipulative to get someone else to conform to what I want and what I need? And it's such a control thing, and we all do it.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so this is big, big, big work.
It is. It is. It's no joke.
I have a couple of questions before we wrap this episode up. What made you get into this line of work, and why are you so driven by helping people break these cycles within themselves?
Well, I think there's a few reasons. My own personal story, I was boundaryless, which caused massive destruction and disconnection in my own life, disconnected from myself, disconnected from my most important relationships. And I couldn't create the business I wanted when so-and-so's stopping over and so-and-so's texting and, hey, we need you for the Boy Scout committee. We need you for Sunday school. Right? Like I couldn't move forward in my business. So then I went from boundaryless to boundaried, became very isolated and alone. That's not healthy either. And really the underbelly of boundaries is self-love and self-worth. That's the healing work right there. That is the healing work. So I went deep into my own traumas, deep into my own healing, and realized that by healing some of my own patterns, and when I say healing, I mean healing, I am not healed.
Yes.
There's still, like, I have done so much work, therapy, somatics, coaching, all of the beautiful things. I've gotten lots of different trainings, and there's probably 90% healing, but there's still every once in a while, I just mentioned with my husband, it's like, what are you doing? Like the patterns flare up, right? So I just knew that, with my own experience, I had something in this realm to really offer and really be able to connect with other folks, because I'm so passionate about relationship with self, relationship with others. And the way that we really connect with ourselves, connect with others, is through this beautiful boundary work and self-love work and self-worth work, and really calling upon our inner leader to
Allows us to stand in our power again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. I'm going to repeat what you said because it's like an Oprah tweetable moment. You said, um, the underlying piece of boundaries is self-love.
Yep.
And I think self-love can be the root of so many of our problems. And it's so very hard for women in particular. Maybe not, maybe it's both. I just know with women a lot
Yep.
to truly love themselves. And I always say, no one does more for you in a day's time than you. So
Yeah.
why can you extend love to everyone else, but it feels uncomfortable to extend that love back to you?
Yeah. That's the worthiness piece.
It is. So Krista, if people are listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I need help with this. Where do they find you? What do you offer them if
Yeah.
someone wants to work with you and further do this deeply healing work?
Yeah. Beautiful question. Thank you. So I've got my own podcast, which I actually just pivoted to becoming boundaried. So they can find me there and learn more about boundaries. I have, and I don't know if you, I'm guessing you'd have it in your show notes, a link for the secret of empowered boundaries. That's a beautiful PDF where it really helps people get clear on their needs. So much of boundary work is founded in what do you actually need? Most people don't know. They don't even know what they need. So it's a really beautiful way to get started doing some of this boundary work. And then if they want to, sign up for my 6-month experience, it's called Stay True to You, meaning staying true to yourself, being honest with where you're at and who you are, not abandoning yourself, really staying with yourself. When those moments of fear, anger, resentment, rage, irritation, sadness, when all of those things come up that make you want to cross that boundary line and really self-abandon, let's stay with ourselves. Let's really do this inner work of calling upon our inner leader and building that self-love muscle so that we can really implement these beautiful, healthy boundaries.
Yes, we'll drop your website and all your social links as well into the show notes for people who want to connect with you. And then let's end by telling people the name of your book.
My book.
Oh, wait, don't you have a book?
I don't, but maybe I should.
I thought for sure you had a book.
No.
Oh, girl, I am your divine interventionist here. Then
Okay.
I am the person, I guess, who was called to say that to you because this work is and you're just so very good at explaining it at a level that's like real and honest. You're very good at keeping people in that zone where it's like you're not just blowing fluff, you're really understanding and explaining to them what this causes and the way that it affects our life. So perhaps I'm the one that was supposed to say that to you.
Well, it's funny because your listeners will see if they follow me on Instagram. I am a writer. It is something that I have to do every single day. So I have been told before that a book is coming and it's in my future. So apparently you just confirmed it.
Yeah, mine is, here's what I found about myself. I've listened to the whispers. I should say the whispers have been coming for a long time. And so I wrote the first 12 chapters about a year ago, 28,000 words. And the way that I did it, because I could not make myself do it from home, because I always had something else I needed to do, is I went away to Vermont for 2.5 weeks and got centered. And so that was like a year and a half ago. Guess what? I have not written another word. And so here's what I say. I'm a destination only writer. I need to find another place to go. That's just what I know about myself. And then write the second section of the book. So yes.
Yeah. So my challenge to you then is considering the boundaries that need to take place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Make that happen.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Krista, you have been a delight. Thank you so much for offering just your real self to us today and helping us have some perspective on how we can do a better job of this in our lives.
Thank you for having me, Kim. It's been a real treat.